Nobody in the community woke up one day and said, I think it would be good to found a college. The bishop decided we need a college for women. So he connected with a couple of the sisters and said, I think you should do it. Now, we're pretty used to being told, you probably can do this, give it your best try. So they had to go, Sister Blanche Rooney was her name, had to go to the provincial superior and say, we don't have any money, but the bishop thinks we ought to start a college, so what do you think? The community said, we can give you $1,000, good luck. They bought the building that's now called Moran Hall for $1,000 and started it in 1920.
In the old days, the women went in one corner and talked about children and food and recipes and whatever. And the men usually went to the bar and talked about politics and whatever else occurred to them. And like theology, those types of discussions would have been seen as men's discussions.
Women were mostly support personnel, and a good executive secretary could run the operation, but the opportunities were never given to her. And now a woman can rise up higher and do more administrative things than she could back then. It was the whole culture of the time. It wasn't St. Rose, it was the whole country was that way.
Little by little by little, it grew. The first class had 19 students, but they kept coming because the amendment had just been passed that gave women the right to vote. So women's consciousness was, well, if we can vote, we maybe could be mayor. We maybe could serve in Congress. We could own a house. We could do all sorts of things. So women started coming, and it grew and grew and grew. Very soon thereafter, they had to start work on what is now St. Joseph's Hall. And then the other buildings came little by little. So it was kind of a miracle story. Who would have thought that it would work, but it did.
Well, I think the heritage and the history, a college founded with scant resources by, enthusiastic and energetic nuns who created what ultimately has become, a well-known regional liberal arts college. I think the atmosphere at St. Rose is very unique. The education is excellent, and it all started from really a hope and a prayer.
Received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan.
The boost for the business program came right after Second World War with the GI Bill. And because we had so many GIs getting the GI benefits and working here in Albany, inquired about the possibility of getting a business degree nights and summers. And that morphed into accepting men on campus by the 70s in the day program. But in the 50s, we had a night school here. And it was only with great exception if a day students program had been disrupted in any way, but there was a course at night. It almost took a federal case to get the co-ed from the day school to go to the night classes because it was only for men.
St. Rose meant educating women and taking it very seriously. The role models, both the religious and the lay faculty, all spoke to that. It said, you want to enjoy college, you want to have a wonderful time, but you also want to widen your world. I had gone to a very tiny high school, and so to be exposed to what I thought was a massive college and a library with research books all over the place, it widened my world. And I think that was what the college was trying to do.
They teach you as an individual not just as part of a mob. I really enjoyed that because I was always falling into such marvelous relationships. And of course, the nuns played a big part in my life, especially when they came out with an article. This is back in the 1940s and 50s, cigaretting. It's bad for you. And of course, now we know, good advice. So things like that kept happening. I appreciated them now.
Higher education was still more of an upper class thing. I was not going to sort of develop my mind in a way. I was going to get something that would let me earn a living. And high school teaching was a solid step up. If I successfully became a college teacher, as I saw it, as a woman, I would have a decent career and possibilities. I could support myself. By my time, we were on the second sister president. A woman was president of the college, and a woman was the dean, and actually a woman was the treasurer. In that sense, you had models of expanded roles, but that didn't mean you necessarily had the nerve to run with it in some ways. It was before the days that it would have occurred to me to think to be a lawyer or to be a doctor. We were still pretty much in women are nurses, teachers, that kind of thing, secretaries. It hadn't gotten in the late 50s to where it is at the present.
The culture in the early 1950s, the number of lay teachers was very, very small, very small. In the business department, I think we had 2. And the whole campus was sister teachers, sister administrators. The registrar's office, the business office were all sisters. So it was, you were living in it, whether you were in your dorm, in the dining room, in chapel, in the classroom, or in the office. They brought their prayer life with them to campus, and we participated in that. So we grew up good girls, mostly.
Well, they had Rose Day at that time, and one of the popular girls would be elected Rose Queen, and we'd have this special day, and there was a maypole, and all my 7 children danced around the maypole. And then as the program went on, I was doing a ballet in a white organdy dress, and it started to rain, and people were starting to go inside because they didn't want to get wet, their pretty linen dresses wet, and I just continued dancing, and the people very politely watched me. They stayed out, and they said, I saved Rose Day, because if I went in, everybody go in.
I think most of the people that come here are new to the idea of a college education. I think that's one thing that's very unique about it. And I think the other thing is it's a smaller school. I don't know that people do as well in big schools. You're lost in the shuffle. Here, I think you get that personal touch that you don't get in a bigger school. It was an all-girls campus to start with. It had curfews. I didn't live on campus, but we spent a lot of time on campus. It was a pretty clean-cut campus. I mean, all the girls wore skirts pretty much back then, and it was an all-girls college. It had a lot of nuns, and the nuns were just transitioning out of the penguin habits into regular habits. They still had a veil, and they were going back to different names. So when I was as a chemistry student, we had Sister Dismas, who became Sister Rafus. So they were going back to their maiden names. I went to apply for medical school. One of the places I went was Yale. And I went and I sat in an office of a guy, I think got his leather patches on his jacket, his tweed jacket, and he's got a couch sitting in the corner, looks like he sleeps on it. And he asks me a question, and the question was, what's the thing that kills the most people in the world? And at the time, it was malaria. And I answered the question. So this guy looks at me and he says, how could you know the answer to that? Did you talk to the boy that just came out of here from Columbia? I said, no, I don't know anything about the boy that just came out of here. He said, but you only go to a small Catholic girls' college in upstate New York. He didn't know that answer. How come you did? The guy from Yale didn't have any confidence that St. Rose could teach me the way Columbia could teach that gentleman. But the reality was it did.
Kent State in that May of 70, when the National Guard shot the students, that was a turning point. You can't believe the world before, because we're in this world where everybody shoots everybody every day and nobody even pays any attention. But that one was the first one, really. You saw the kids out there shooting the frisbees around and chasing them and whatever, and then I was at a meeting at RPI, somebody comes in and says they've killed them. That dumped us over into a much uglier world. The students did well. The students had a coffin over by the flagpole, and they got their academic gowns, which are of course black and flowing, and they stand over there with the coffin under the flag. The kids held teach-ins. They got it better than we did, in the sense that they had that core understanding that you weren't going to save the Vietnamese the way we were saving them, you know what I mean? Dropping napalm on them and whatever. And they brought us further. They brought many of the people on the faculty further. I mean, I was still in saving the Vietnamese, but I wasn't after that. Kent State shifted the world here in a very, to me, fundamental way.
The development of the school was initiated gradually, and it went back probably into the 70s, and then talk about clusters of departments, and then into schools, and then the school up here. It was Dr. Tom Mannion, who I think, the date I remember was the summer of 72, and he spoke to our faculty and said, you know, you really should be talking about a master's program in the business, because we were just bachelor's degree at that point. I was chair of the business cluster at that time, and so it fell to me. The others were either on vacation or teaching other courses, and I was the youngest on the team, so it fell to me. So that summer I went around to the different schools, colleges in the area, and asked if we did initiate a master's, would that pose any problem for you? And they had no problem. The possibility of an MBA became more and more attractive, and we morphed into that with another couple of courses and shifting the program around. And then the JD MBA came, so it grew.
Certainly, when I came to St. Rose in 1976-77, I was a part-time basketball coach. I think there had been 3 years of women's basketball prior to that, but not playing officially in league play. So the league play in the NAC started for women's basketball in my second year. And when I was an athlete, our goal as a basketball team was to get to states. And my senior year, we missed getting to states by 1. We had a loss instead of a win. So that was always something that I was striving for. And our team at St. Rose made states. So that was a big step forward for the women's program to be able to compete with the best Division III schools in the state.
In the early 1980s, the computer department only had a few courses, comprising a data processing minor. In a very collaborative effort, the computer and math faculty and the business department launched a new major. Through the guidance of the New York State Education Department, an integrated programming focusing mainly on systems analysis and the design of business applications, became our computer information systems major. It was the first of its kind in the Capital Region.
When I was a student, the majors were very limited. It was teacher education or, something in the liberal arts. Nowadays, we're more profession-oriented, more accomplishment-oriented. The vision for the music industry program was to offer students an alternative to music education and teacher licensing. Not every person who is a musician at that point in time necessarily wanted to go in to kindergarten through 12th year and teach music or become a piano player. Our majors at that point in the performance area were just vocal and piano, and that was not going to do it at that point in time. We have grown just about every single year. I think right now we're maybe in the 120s. We started out very small. Some of my first classes, we had 8 or 9 students in.
Well, it was wonderful to be on campus. We participated in a lot of coffee houses. We went all the time to the Camelot Room. It was fun to be there and meet commuters as well as resident students. We bonded. It was just a fun time. When I first arrived on campus, I was a little bit uneasy because it was new to me and unknown. But I slowly realized that the faculty and staff and the students were welcoming.
Soccer in general got very popular in the mid-'80s. Prior to that, you couldn't get on a tennis court. And then youth soccer became very popular, and so these younger women wanted to go to an institution where they could play soccer. So we added women's soccer, and now that program has well over 30 student athletes on the roster, and Coach Gathia was able to coach the program to win a national title in 2011. So there's been tremendous growth there. We had the Garth Joseph phenomenon, I call it. Garth Joseph was a student athlete back in the 90s. I think he's 7 foot something. Tremendous personality. The team was very, very good that year, the years that he played, and we were in the Events and Athletics Center before we expanded it, which we did in 2004. Prior to that, you could seat about 500 people, and we had to shut the doors, put a security guard on the door, and tell people in the hallway that they had to leave because we were packed and people wanted to see him. So that's something that's tremendously memorable.
We had opened our interfaith sanctuary in 1997, and then as we were doing that, we were having different ceremonies. And the first event, there were people sitting in the front row, and they were from all different faith traditions, and they were dressed in the attire that would be complementary to that faith tradition. And I remember somebody saying, "Oh, those two people in another part of the world couldn't sit next to each other. There would be, restrained violence, and that wouldn't be allowed, or nor would they be ever willing to do that." And it sort of took my breath away. We live in this country, and we sort of imagine people can have such freedoms, and especially around religion and faith and belief, and we imagine levels of respect and honoring of each other, and then to come here and really see what that looks like.
Well, I had the privilege and the pleasure of serving as president of the college from 1996 to 2012, 16 years. It was a great period of growth for the college, both in terms of the number of students we have, new programs, new faculty, new facilities. When I was inaugurated in 1996, I think I said something to the effect that the success of the city is dependent upon the success of the college and vice versa. We're right in the heart of the Pine Hills, right in the heart of Albany. I wanted to make sure we were seen as an asset to the city and the area. So I reached out to Mayor Jerry Jennings and I said, "Listen, we're here as a resource. We want to work together to improve the city and certainly our neighborhood." And that was a great symbiotic relationship over.
When I think about St. Rose, I think about service. And I think that the focus on student service, on students being integrated into the community, learning about the community, being part of the community, it's really important. There's a lot of talent here, and the City of Albany has certainly tapped into that talent, whether it's helping us to come up with a new logo for the city, which came out of St. Rose, to reaching out to the school when we have challenges or when we have needs, when we need volunteers, when we're thinking about our youth and how we can make sure that they have an understanding of what is here right in their own backyard and what this school represents with respect to opportunity for the future of kids who live right here in Albany.
We built academic buildings and communications and music and the arts and science and so forth. Over the course of my tenure, the sports teams, particularly the outdoor sports teams, needed a home. They would play at various venues throughout the capital region, and I used to call them the Wandering Golden Knights because they never had the same place to play. So Joe Palmieri, who is a friend of the college and a donor, had heard about our late baseball coach who passed away during my tenure, and said at commencement when Joe was speaking, he said, I want to honor your late baseball coach, Bob Bellizzi, with $100,000 to start a campaign. It was just the first gift. He eventually added another $1 million to that gift, and it allowed us to work with the city and build an outdoor sports venue for baseball, softball, lacrosse, and soccer, as well as create a place for folks in that part of the city to recreate, to take walks, to enjoy the outdoor activity. So it was truly a wonderful example of the city working with the college.
There was always that quality that was referred to when Mark was president as the St. Rose difference. And I don't know how you put your finger on what that was, but there was a level, community definitely overriding, but there's a level of caring beyond that. And the community worked together for the singular goal of educating our students. It seemed to be first and foremost in everybody's mind, from the housekeepers, the physical plant, to faculty, alumni board, students, administrators. It was just very, very special.
When I visited the campus, I walked around and spoke to individuals who worked here in the admissions office and up in the registrar's office, and it was shocking to me that a lot of them either gotten a degree here or they had kids who were going here. I was looking for a place that I felt like I wasn't going to get lost, and from having those conversations with individuals, really impromptu, really showed that would be the case here. So in 2012, actually that summer, I found myself homeless again, and it was like a weird situation there. I was just coming from a high of being on the CDTA buses. St. Rose had me doing a lot of stuff, and I was like, oh, this is all right. And went back to Connecticut. My life again was in shambles. And two very close friends, one who just graduated from med school, the other, Gerald, who still lives here, he's an accountant. And I reached out to them saying like, hey, I've been journaling. I have these 5 steps to success: dream, plan, execute, achieve, and give back.
One of my friends was going through one of the toughest times of his life. And Jermaine Brookshire came to myself and Kajana McKenzie, and he proposed the idea of the Great Expectations Movement. And pretty much what it was is that we were in a motivational group where we went out, we gave presentations and helped people try to understand who they were. And we inspired them to become a better themselves, like be the best you was our huge slogan. Show them how they can be better. We actually got called back to St. Rose to do a diversity training. And it was pretty crazy for me, because I'm like, here it is. We're gonna be giving a presentation to all these freshmen. And I think pretty much St. Joe's was packed with freshmen. And there were like I believe there were 3 sessions, and it was like a jam-packed room, 3 sessions. I'm standing on stage talking to all these, future students, and they're like listening to me. And it's like crazy because, as I mentioned, like coming into St. Rose, I was timid. I wasn't like really into that whole thing, but to be standing on stage, I feel like showed my personal development as, going from timid to being more confident in myself, to being able to talk and, share my ideas and share my thoughts. And for them to be receptive of it was, really groundbreaking for me.
We did motivational speeches and personal development courses. And again, still to this day, we're very close friends. Gerald, him and Christopher, who's another graduate from here, they flew out to my graduation in 2019. And and just been a really good support system. Money's tight, and one of the things was my friends, even when it came down to needing stuff to pay for the bar exam, no questions asked, sent me money and such, and just sowed a seed. And I think that's also why my drive is as strong as it is because, there's a lot of people that have done things for me that don't need to. They believed in me, and so that's why I put a lot of pressure on myself to sort of show them that, I'm gonna live up to the hype. And again, a lot of that foundational work happened at St. Rose, which is why, even today, drove up 2.5 hours for this, and I'm gonna go right back down to Connecticut to go back to work. But it's because St. Rose is so special to me that this doesn't seem like an inconvenience, it's an honor.
Personally, I learned how to be a better leader, or to be more confident in my leadership skills. I am super reserved, super introverted, and I felt like I couldn't be a leader because, I'm just a quiet little thing walking around. And with our classes, it's there's no one standard of a leader. We have different kinds of leaders, you have different kinds of leadership styles. Having this class, I noticed going through leadership styles, going through how to be a good leader, I was I can be a good leader, and I look back at the things that I used to do, and I'm I was a good leader. I still am a good leader, but because in my eyes, I wasn't like everyone else who were out there in the media, I felt like I wasn't a good leader. But this class definitely showed me that there's so many different kinds of leaders, that you could be anything.
For me, St. Rose means family, just because I feel no matter who you are, no matter what background you come from, you'll always find people that can relate to you, that understand, that are genuinely interested in the same things you're interested in. So I feel that's all that matters when it comes to the idea of home and family. It's that you're with people who make you feel comfortable and happy, and even professors tend to be very involved, and they get really excited when you're doing events and stuff. I had one professor come to my event, and he brought his husband with him, and it was just a really cool experience to see them outside of the classroom and seeing all the hard work that you're doing. I think that's a big thing for me, so I feel St. Rose is definitely home.
I decided to attend St. Rose because of the environment I was looking for. I just didn't really want to be one of the 100 kids in the classroom. I kind of wanted to be able to have easy access to the teachers and things like that. Playing baseball was a huge factor for me. As a freshman, I played baseball, and that's carried on through senior year. St. Rose is like a home to me. Being here for 4 years, living in Albany, you really just get to embrace it and get immersed in it. And I feel in the summer, towards the end of it, you start to look forward to coming to school. So that's what it's meant to me at home.
I used to do the speeches at the Acceptance Students Day, and when the college made a new video, my voice that morning was very deep, and I just want to make a positive impact. And that's really what I wanted to do, and St. Rose in many ways allowed me to do that. And the inspiration that I get, the stories, the motivation and support that really started for me here is how I sit in front of you today as a corporate attorney.
After I graduated, I came back home to the College of St. Rose. It's an honor to be on as a member of the Board of Trustees. I've always been engaged with St. Rose through mailings before the internet, postal service, but there was a big event at the Mastery Center, and my family and we attended, and T. Stillman was there, and many of the other faculty that I was aware of way back in the 80s, and it felt like I came home. And that kind of set something inside me to know that I wanted to make a difference in a student's life. And I could do that through scholarships. The House Women's Leadership Institute, it just brought me full circle to come back home.
I think what makes it distinctive is the history, the spirit, and every single person who comes, undergraduate, graduate, male, female, they change it. Every person who comes to a college becomes a co-founder of the college. So it becomes as distinctive as they are.
Just about everything we do started with a student's idea. So somebody will come in and say, you know, I was someplace, or one of my friends said their campus does this, and we'd be like, really, what should we do with that? And then we start to give that some shape and help that to grow into something. And so many things that we're a part of, that we have, that are established things on campus, started with a student's idea. But not just that one student's idea, but all the students that continue to help that grow over the years are just phenomenal. And I know in the little window so often that they're here, and they come and they go, and they think, okay, oh yeah, I finished my college, and they don't realize like that I can frequently say, oh, that program wasn't here till that student was here, and they made that happen, and now it's an established thing. Or we didn't have that student organization until that particular student came through these doors, and they thought this would be a good endeavor, you know. And so I don't think that the students always realize that their impact isn't just for this limited time that they're here, that they have this potential to have really created amazing things that continue to carry on. And I get to stand up and say, yay, reach out St. Rose, or something like that. But I can think of, oh, but that student back in 1997 who suggested we do something like this is the one that really sort of kicked that forward.
The feeling that you have when you're here, the feeling you have being around the students, being around the faculty, being around staff, it's kind of an all for one and one for all. And I've been here for 30 plus years, and it hasn't changed. If anything, it's probably better now than it's ever been, as challenges become greater, and those who are here are rallying around the need to move forward in a new and different way.
So we need to keep innovating, responding, but we also need to stay true to our values. We do not ever want to let go of the liberal arts. We want to continue welcoming students from many cultures and accommodating those cultures. Not just say, you can be here, but as long as you behave like everybody else, we'll be happy. We need to say, what does your culture ask of us?
Would like to just speak for a moment on the importance of celebrating 100 years. You know, the founders of this institution started out with $1,000 donation, an endorsement by the local bishop at the time, and lots of prayers. And 100 years later, we're still here, we're still performing an incredibly important role in providing educational opportunity for students in New York State, beyond, around the world. And I hope that we take that moment of celebration and realize we will continue to meet all the challenges we're facing and continue to be a college that helps train the next generation of citizens going forward.
As an undergrad, my passions were still evolving, so I think that maybe it helped me start to cultivate and define them and to give shape to them in ways that I hadn't initially anticipated, and I think that's just continued to carry on through my work life here.
Well, it's very important for St. Rose to continue to offer courses in mathematics, science, technology, because that really is the future, and a lot of that is here now. It's very important for students to have a fundamental grasp of mathematics. It's very important for students to be able to think logically, to think critically, to understand scientific process, to understand technology. It's very hard to imagine a student graduating and not having a solid grasp of technology, scientific thought, and mathematics. It just really isn't. They just struggle. They would struggle in the workforce without those skills, no matter what field they go into.
St. Rose at its core is a giving place. That's how I would describe it. It's a warm place. It's a cradle in its own way. You're not left out to dry. If there's issues and problems, there's somewhere to go with those problems. Even back then, the way the houses are set up for people living in the houses, they're not remote. There's a smaller cachet of women at the time in each house. So there's a camaraderie that I think forms in that kind of an environment.
Women can make a difference. They can instill in their lives a passion for others to succeed in life. And with the skill set and leadership abilities and knowledge, they can have the confidence to make an impact on the lives of others. I felt that in 1980, and I feel it today with the student body here, our strategic plan with the college, with the students, and the mission and values of our founding sisters. I believe we're all on the same page, that this is the core value of a St. Rose education. Every time I come on campus, it feels like home. Even when I'm away, it instilled the values and the mission of the college that I can take into my everyday life. Thank you. I'm gonna cry.
How do you keep alive the heritage of, say, your great-grandparents if they died before you were born? So you know they existed, but you don't really know anything. It's more in the spirit. It's the traditions that we keep alive. It is the memories that are shared, the stories, the name of the college. It was named for the first woman to be made a saint in the New World, North and South America. The motto of the college, in your light we will see light. Our current president, Marcia White, is breathtakingly good at keeping heritage and history alive, and she brings it into every talk that she gives. So it would be impossible not to know about it. Many of the buildings are named for the first sisters or for pieces of our history. But I think the real legacy that keeps alive is the beauty and seriousness and holiness of study, of knowledge. That whether or not, if I'm a student, I can put words on it, it's there. This is something more than just learn this stuff so you can get a good job. It's beyond that. And I think it stays.
My mother, Margaret Dugan Sandman, was the valedictorian of the class of 1940, the 17th graduating class from the college. She was a first-generation college student. She received a rigorous, accessible, affordable education that gave her a lifelong love of learning and an appreciation for the value of higher education that she passed on to each of her 5 children. St. Rose made my mother a strong, confident, accomplished woman. It helped to make her a model of excellence and integrity for me. St. Rose to me means access to a superb education and to the refinement of one's mind and character.
For my parents' 50th anniversary, my siblings and I created an endowed fund to support students studying in communication sciences and disorders, something we knew would mean a lot to my parents. They told us at the time that nothing we could have done would have meant more to them. We continue to contribute to that fund every year, now 30 years later. Following my mother's death, we created an endowed fund for the Alumni Garden, which is now named in my mother's honor. Through these 2 gifts, my parents' legacy is permanently linked with the college.
You know, the role of the College of St. Rose is overreaching. It's a leader. It's an active participant in the community, a convener, bringing people together. a listener that is able to react to what the community is saying. Its primary mission has been to train teachers, and by doing so, it helps educate the entire community. The College of St. Rose mission is to encourage, energize involvement and effective leadership in society. St. Rose is doing that just fine.
St. Rose taught us to be grown-ups and responsible citizens. We learned how to think, not what to think. We were encouraged to think critically and to look at all sides of an issue, not only in the sciences, but in all areas.
What an incredible 100 years of history we have had at St. Rose. The photos and collection of stories are so important to remember and cherish. To everyone who lent their voice to this mosaic of remembrances, thank you. You are each a blessing to us and to our upstate New York Capital Region community. I thank each of you who have been part of our journey to reach this milestone of 100 years. Whether you're an alumnus, a current student, faculty member, staff member, trustee, or a friend, I am deeply grateful to you. And I'm especially thankful for our founders, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. The sisters laid the foundation for this very special college with their vision and commitment to the timeless values upon which we stand today. Thank you to everyone who is by our side today as we continue our journey. I'm indebted to all who have supported this Centennial celebration. Our faculty, staff, and students have demonstrated remarkable resilience in a year which tests them beyond imagination. And to those who join us in defining the big dreams and who will work to create our future, thank you. In closing, I want you to know that our century-old values, orientation towards excellence, development of the whole person, creating an inclusive community, service to the dear neighbor, and meeting the needs of the times are needed now more than ever as the nation grapples with issues of inequality and the ability to maintain community amid disagreement. Our values call us to focus everything we do on our students so they can develop into the leaders our region and our nation needs for the future. By defining who we are, removing barriers to student learning and degree achievement, we will ensure a sustainable St. Rose serves our students and society far into the future. We will do so following the lead of our founders, with great faith, but with knowledge that faith without a plan is only a dream. Our founders had both, and so do we. In thy light, we shall see light. Thank you.
Good evening. The Mastery family wants to wish the College of St. Rose a happy 100th birthday. St. Rose is a pillar to the Albany community, a partner to many local businesses, and a home to students from the local area and beyond. The Mastery family has been connected to the college since 1987, with 3 generations of involvement from being a student to trusteeship. As the college enters the next 100 years, we look forward to continued partnerships and support for the betterment of the College of St. Rose and our greater community. Cheers to 100 years.
Hi there, Jim Morris, Regional President at Berkshire Bank. On behalf of everybody here at Berkshire, congratulations to St. Rose on its centennial celebration. What an accomplishment. Here's to the next 100.